Welcome in to the 84th episode of the Sabremetrix podcast. My name is Bill. Alongside me, as always, is Walt. Walt, how you doing today, man?
Oh, doing pretty good. Looking forward to talking about the Sabres once again on this beautiful July night.
We must be real sickos for doing it when it's such a nice night out, but we're doing it. It is Thursday evening around 7:30, so this will be coming out Friday morning. Again, if you were just listening to the audio, go ahead and head over to YouTube, hit subscribe on the Sabremetrix podcast. We'd very much appreciate it. We would love to have you during some live streams as well. And if you're watching on YouTube and you aren't subscribed, go ahead and do that and maybe hit like if you enjoy the content. Speaking of the content, let's get right into it. Walt, my first question for you tonight is where will Bowen Byram be playing in 2025 2026?
I think my answer earlier this offseason definitely would have been anywhere but Buffalo. Now I think there's like a small chance he could come back to Buffalo. Like I have no inside info on this, but just looking at their depth chart right now, if they let Byram go and if they trade him and they don't get a defenseman coming back, like you're looking at one of Zach Jones or Jacob Bryson in the everyday lineup with two injuries to the Sabres defense group. Like you're looking at like Ryan Johnson, Jacob Bryson, and Zach Jones as half of that Sabres defense group. So that thought is pretty scary. And, I don't know if the Sabres have like another, it's just kind of like a two dimes for a quarter type trade like they did with Paterka. Like I don't know if there's another one out there for them to do that with Byram. So, I do think the Sabres, I think it's creeping up. I do think there's a chance he could stay as a Sabre. Like the closer this gets to his arbitration award, I think the more likely it is. Now, he could still be traded after the arbitration award, but, it's also likely he stays a Sabre if they reach that point because that means a trade has not happened yet. And, I guess we'll find out. I really did think that he would be going to St. Louis for Jake Neighbors. I think that trade just made too much sense for both sides because they just have so many, kind of youngerish wingers. I mean, I know they traded Zach Bolduc, but I just think that trade of St. Louis is really into them, giving a guy like Jake Neighbors for them really made sense. But, that didn't happen. We're sitting here July 10th. Byram's still a Sabre. So, I think he could end up a Sabre next season.
Not only do I think he could, if I was the Sabres, I almost would because of what you said. If they aren't bringing a defenseman back, you're forcing someone into the top four. And you're already kind of doing that with Michael Kesselring. Everyone expects, and I personally do expect him to be a top four defenseman as well. But what happens if it doesn't work out? What happens if Owen Power, because this is something that slipped my mind, and obviously it's come back in quite a way. Owen Power took a pretty nasty injury at the end of last season. What happens if it takes him a little bit to get going as well? Like things could drop off quite a bit. You trade Byram, you don't get a defenseman back. You're already forcing someone into the top four. Power struggles a little bit, or maybe Kesselring struggles a little bit. Who knows? An errant shot off the foot and a guy's out for a month. That could get really thin on the back end there. So it's a double-edged sword. Do you want to be paying, a few defensemen a whole bunch of money, or do you move them? I'm not exactly sure, but I personally think I'm more on the you should keep them at least for the start of the season just to see how things are shaking out and to have the back end, the defense that the team's been looking for years with some actual stability and hopefully some competition back there. So we'll see what happens with Byram. Do you have any thoughts of did you like what the Sabres did in the situation of taking him to arbitration?
Yeah, I think I mean, there is actually a threat of an offer sheet. I guess it definitely makes sense. I'm still a little skeptical that a team actually would have offer sheeted Byram, especially like some of the teams that, are kind of in discussion of being into Byram, like teams like Calgary, teams like St. Louis. Because, if they do an offer sheet, that first round pick could easily turn into Gavin McKenna. Like there's no protections on first round picks when you give them up in an offer sheet. And those are two fringe playoff teams, and Byram's not exactly a guy that could push a fringe team into a playoff spot, as we've seen as Sabres fans. So I don't know how real that offer sheet threat was, but I mean, I guess if it was real, it's worth it. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I kind of would have liked if that offer sheet rumor was true, because to be able to get a first from a middle of the pack team, like a 15th, 16th overall pick for Byram, I think that would be more than what he's worth. And then, if the rumors were true that teams are offering like 9-10 million, getting two firsts for a guy like Byram would be absolutely insane. Like, that would be an incredible trade for the Sabres. Like, even if they're trying to win now, you just take the two first and figure everything else out. So yeah, I do think at the end of the day, though, I do think it was worth taking him to arbitration, and it gives the Sabres a better opportunity to have him come back, because at least it kind of sets up a negotiation process instead of trying to bring him to the table and figure something out.
All right. Well, there you have it. Bowen Byram, as of right now, is still a Sabre. We will see what happens in the future with him, and if he starts the season or even ends the season as a Buffalo Sabre. Moving on to a couple guys where it comes to extension. So they will be on the Sabres next season, but specifically for one player, definitely want to get him locked up. Another player I would say is right behind him. First up, Alex Tuch. Looking at his possible extension numbers from AFP Analytics here, they have him at $8.5 million on a 7-year deal. Walt, what do you make of that projection for Alex Tuch?
I mean, I think he's definitely worth it, especially for a team like the Sabres. I guess a lot of it depends on what they do this season, but I mean, this is a contract I would obviously sign this offseason if you could. But yeah, I mean, he's just, if you lose him, like, you don't really have much in the system that could really come close to replacing him. Uh, even production wise and even like skill set wise, Sabres just have nobody like that. And I doubt they'd be able to acquire anybody like that in a trade either. Like, it did take a guy like Jack Eichel to get a piece like Alex Tuch coming back in a trade. So I mean, that's just a guy that, just every aspect of him, he's someone that you have to bring back no matter the cost, I think, if you want to be serious about winning both this. I mean, really, it wouldn't matter for this upcoming season because he's signed, but I do think he's someone you want locked up long term. But for a guy like Tuck, I'm probably thinking a lot about this season. Like, if this season goes south, is Buffalo a place he wants to be long term? Because we've seen like how the Sabres kind of let the players dictate where they go, even if they're under team control. So, what's stopping Dahlin and Tage from asking out this offseason if things go south, and then Tuck's stuck long term in a market like Buffalo? Like, sure, he could be moved, but if he signs a big lengthy contract and has a down year next year, that's going to be a tougher contract to move.
Definitely. What is the max that you would be willing to pay per year for Alex Tuch services?
I consider going the $9 million range, because I think the salary cap's going up so much over the next few seasons. And it was pretty set in stone. The only reason why we had a salary cap kind of stay flat was because of a global pandemic. This is a lot different, where we pretty much know the cap will be increasing at a pretty steady rate. So yeah, $9 million for a winger like him really isn't too crazy. And Sabres do have to pay kind of the desperation tax here. Like, they're not a winning team, and they desperately need to keep a guy like Tuck on board. It's kind of similar to when they gave Jeff Skinner that contract. Like, they weren't a winning team, but they had no scoring wingers in the system, and they needed to keep a guy like Skinner on board. So you have to overpay a little bit.
He's definitely someone that a lot of fans will be very, very upset if he leaves.
Yeah.
Yes, Dahlin, yes, Thompson, sure, but
Yeah, with
Tuch is
Tuck's Mr.
right up there.
Saber.
Yes,
He's Mr.
exactly.
Saber for a lot of Sabres fans that are left.
Yep, and he's the one that was promoted. He wants to be here, a quote unquote local guy, or grew up a Sabres fan. So yeah, that's I think it's very important on getting him signed, but at the same time, I wouldn't blame him for being like, look, I'm going to play out this season and see how this thing goes. If it goes well, sure, I'll come back. If it doesn't, I'm out of here, guys. I only have one NHL career. I can only do this so long. So that is the story with Alex Tuch. The next person I wanted to talk about is Zach Benson, and here is AFP Analytics again. showing that Zach Benson, their projected contract for him would be 7 years, $7.4 million. What do you think about that projection for Zach Benson?
I think it's probably, in the range of what he would need to be offered in order to accept that. Just in terms of his production though, I'd be a little bit worried to offer that right now. Like I'm probably Zach Benson's biggest fan. I think he's a great player. I think he plays the game in a great way, and I think he'll always be a plus impact player at 5-on-5. But I just need to see more point production from him in order to commit that type of money to him long term. Like I know he's still really young. I know the point production probably will come. But, if it doesn't come and you're paying a winger that's getting like 50 to 60 points a year, 7.4 million. Like I guess I said earlier the cap's going up so it won't matter, but I don't think Benson's someone you necessarily have to rush on with term. And I'd probably wait to see how this season plays out before offering him a contract. Because I do think if his point totals go up this season, I'd feel a lot more comfortable offering him a lot of term and a lot of money and just getting that contract done. But, if his point totals kind of stay in that like 30 to 50 range, then, I don't know if I'd offer him that much term and money right off the bat.
Okay. I would see, I would like it if it was maybe like 7 million flat. 6.5 would be incredible. It's probably too low. Would you do something like 3 years, $5 million? 5.5? Is that something you would do for Benson?
Yeah, I'd probably do something like that. I mean,
Okay.
I do want to sign him to term. I just think I need one productive season from him
Yeah.
in terms of point totals though, in order to give him that long term deal. Because I think he's a guy like Reinhardt where he's going to be good. Now the question
Yeah.
is just really how good. And obviously with Reinhardt, what he's done with Florida, he's been incredible. But yeah, he's someone where if you're paying him for 7 years, it's not a bad thing. He's a really good player. But I do think this season will be huge in determining his value. And I also don't think he'll sign a contract this offseason either, because I think he realizes how big this upcoming season is in determining his future value, and he'll get the opportunities too to score. Because I mean, we've seen him on the top line with Tage and Kulik to end the season, and we've seen the Sabres get rid of JJ Paterka, replace him with a third, fourth line forward, and we've seen him bring in no one else with top six skills. So he's going to get the chance. So I think he's going to want that chance to try to produce this season.
I mean, I'm definitely rooting for him to produce and get his bag because he's a great player and the kind of personality that you want on the Sabres as well. So there it is on Tuch and Benson's projections. But the one thing I wanted to say before we move on is what do you make of basically, and this is more for Tuch than Benson, but Benson is part of this. What do you make of the Sabres essentially squandering some really good contracts? Alex Tuch might have one of the best contracts in the league when he was under $5 million for so long, and Zach Benson was obviously on his and is still on his ELC. He's not making a lot of money. That's where you should strike when the iron's hot, in a sense. Do you think that was a huge opportunity wasted, or do you think that's just part of the game? What do you think of that, Walt?
Yeah, man, I think it was a pretty wasted opportunity. I also was even more wasted because the Sabres, didn't really even try to spend to the cap during most of the Alex Tuch era. So they really didn't get the value out of that contract by doing that too. And I think if he's a guy who you're not able to sign long term, he's someone who you could traded for an absolute premium, probably even last season or the season before. You could have, really restocked the system with young players because I mean he's a playoff type player and he's making a very low salary. So any playoff team would have loved to add him to their roster, kind of extend their contention window. Some of that aspect alone, I think it also kind of hurts because I think a lot of times as Sabres fans, I think we're kind of taught we're caught with tunnel vision sometimes. Where like we have to win now, we have to win the season, we can't trade guys for futures. Like you can still trade guys for futures. Like 5 years from now, when we're looking at our prospect pool and the top guy is like, I don't even know, like some dude in the WHL that's getting like half a point per game, they're gonna be like, yeah, I mean, it's probably because we traded away all our good players for win now type guys when we're, not really getting the same talent level back. So, yeah, I do think that's kind of the interesting thing with a guy like Tuck because, yeah, they didn't spend the cap, so they wasted it there. And they also didn't trade him when the time was perfect. So if they don't make it to the playoffs this season and Tuck doesn't stay with the Sabres, that's another huge wasted opportunity because they'll probably only be able to trade him at the deadline for a fraction of what he was worth a few seasons ago.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Walt. I mean, yeah, I think trading him would have been very tough, but at the same time, this is Buffalo, and you need to have pretty much constantly a pretty well stocked prospect pool because you're not going to get guys through trades and free agency as we've been reminded and that we've seen with our own two eyes. So there you have it. A couple of contracts upcoming, hopefully, for those two guys that are personal favorites of mine. Obviously, personal favorites of a lot of other Sabres fans as well. So we'll see what happens with Tuch and Benson. Would love to get Benson signed this offseason, but I can see what you were saying and him waiting and maybe even the team waiting as well. So there is that. One topic that I wanted to get your thoughts on is over the past couple days, I've had the thought of this team seems to be on a seesaw. They're going from one extreme to the other. You go from Ralph Kruger, defensive structure. If you carry defenseman, if you carry the puck past the blue line, I will personally fight you in the back room. Then you go to Granato. You've done nothing wrong. Play without fear. Offense, transition, go, go, go. Try to outscore your problems. Now we're back under Lindy Ruff going toughness, hard to play against, structure, defense. This is all pretty much with the same defensive coach, too, the same D coach, which is pretty funny. But at some point, these different philosophies with some of these different players, and it feels like a seesaw. And I wanted to get your opinion on that, Walt. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I do. I do think that's definitely true because I mean, obviously, we saw the running gun Sabres in 22-23, and then 23-24, we saw a Sabres team that, kind of tried improving defensively, and I guess they did, but came at the cost of a lot of offense. And yeah, and then 24-25, they kind of went back to, trying to focus more on offense, crazy 5-on-5 scoring offense, horrible defensively, bad goaltending. So, yeah, it's definitely, and, I think this is something you have to deal with when you're not a great hockey team. Because I think the great players, like the truly great players in the NHL, like your McDavids, your McKinnons, even a guy like Rasmus Dahlin who's on the roster now, they control the game so much that they're positive players both ways. Like they don't have to make trade-offs in their game. They don't have to sacrifice some offense to play better defense and vice versa. Like they're just truly dominant, always controlling the puck, always controlling the game. When you're a bad team like the Sabres, like you just have to choose how you want to be bad. Like, do you want to be a bad team who's really good on offense or a bad team who's really good on defense? Because when you have bad players, they have to choose trade offs to their game. Like, they'll always be a net negative player. They just have to choose how they want to reach that point. So that's kind of the thing with the Sabres now and why they keep going back and forth and different ways of being mediocre because they just don't have talent like the rest of the NHL. Like, I just don't think this is a talented hockey team. And so they have to make these trade offs. So they're going to sacrifice offense this year to play better defensively. But, that offense and especially that power play offense, which was also bad last year, it's just not good enough to get them to the playoffs.
Not only that, everything you said, definitely agree with, but they're in a situation where that it almost helps the case for what we're saying. Like Byram could end up on this team because the offensive firepower is just not really there, at least on paper. Can you make up Paterka's offense in the aggregate and hopefully play better defense? Maybe. But there's a lot of hope going into the season. Not only the hope for that, the hope that UPL can figure it out. The hope that Alex Lyon doesn't have to play a huge portion of games because either UPL's hurt or, just not playing up to snuff and really struggling again. Hoping that if Devin Levi gets in the net, he actually looks like a consistent NHL goaltender and someone that doesn't need more seasoning in Rochester. They're hoping that Jack Quinn has a bounce back. They're hoping that Owen Power comes back and isn't a shell of himself trying to play when he isn't 100% or just had like a really shortened offseason and he just wasn't able to get as much work in. They're hoping that a guy like Kesselring can be a top 4 defenseman. I think it's possible. They're hoping maybe even Josh Doan could be a top 6 forward. They're hoping that they play well enough to keep Tuch around. They're hoping that Benson improves offensively because he's probably going to be in the top 6. They're hoping that Yuri Kulik can be a surprisingly good center for the second straight year. That's a lot of hope, man. I think that's pretty much where Sabres fans were at this offseason is like you always are going to have to hope for improvement with guys. But as Jason Zucker said, hope is a pretty crappy strategy.
Yeah.
And
I was just about to bring that up too. I'm like, didn't he just say that at the locker cleanup?
And so I think people were really looking for, like, on paper, this is a solidified playoff team. So you have some margin of error. It just feels like the Sabres this upcoming season, there's not a lot of margin for error. They're also hoping that they don't go on a 13-game losing streak, which oh boy, I'm hoping that doesn't happen either. But you want to talk about pressure on these players, pressure on the coaching staff and the front office? Well, it was made because you're hoping for so much. And that's what worries me. Not only the seesaws of, what are you going to sacrifice in your game? And are you going to sacrifice defense? You're going to sacrifice offense, but just the hope that they're going for as well. It's, can I make a case that this team makes the playoffs next season? Yes. Yes, I can. I'm not going to lay it out. That'll be maybe a later episode, maybe, I don't know, middle of August kind of thing. But I can. But it's not the likely scenario. Not even a little bit. Because again, it's just a lot of factors need to go right. So, Walt, I know I didn't really give you anything prompted to respond, but is there anything else that you wanted to add to that before we kind of switch gears?
I think, like I was talking about earlier with kind of how, like, the difference between a talented team and a team that's not that talented. Like, a talented team, if things don't bounce their way, like, their point production or their point, like, kind of range they could get is probably, like, like 95 to 115 points. This Sabres team right now is operating like a team whose range is like 75 to 95 points. Like, if everything goes bad, we'll get kind of a 2.0 of last season. Like, if everything goes well, you get like 22, 23, where you're hoping the teams around you in the playoff race like stick to that lower 90s range and you can maybe sneak in. But it's crazy thinking about how the Sabres have one of the youngest rosters in the NHL in 22-23. They're 1 point away from the playoffs. Like, we should be in that team whose point range is like 95 to 115 points. 3 years later? Like, that's like should be like the natural progression of a really young team doing that well. But unfortunately, we're sitting here talking about a team who's probably going to do worse than that 22-23 team, and they're also older than that team. They also have a lot less exciting young pieces than that team. So I don't know. It's just disappointing.
I mean, yeah, that wasn't the most uplifting segment. I can say that for sure. But again, I genuinely feel like a lot of this is just banking on progression again and hope. And yes, again, I can make the case that this team will make the playoffs. I can make it. I'm not super confident with it though, because a lot of it is, Kesselring is that guy, and Josh Doan really, fixes his finishing woes from last year, and same with Benson and Cooley.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
mean,
just
that's the
just
thing
a
with
lot.
Like even Kessler and Doan, they couldn't even get Utah into the playoffs last season. Like that. Like how are they going to get a team like Buffalo, who's probably worse than Utah in the playoffs?
Man, they took it on the chin from Utah last season. I remember that. That, that was a tough game. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's again, I'm not going to go off on any kind of negative tangent. I'm pretty sure you can hear that on previous episodes of ours or different segments of ours, and um, yeah, it's tough. So not going to harp away on that stuff. Let's talk about some actually kind of interesting news. I mean, it's not super important for Sabres fans at the time, especially for one specific player, but I wanted to chat about it if you'll indulge me. Per Frank Saravelli, sources say a new provision in the CBA will allow each NHL team to place one 19-year-old CHL player in the AHL per season. So that is one per organization per season, and 18-year-olds are ineligible. So I believe that, for our purposes, last year, Zach Benson could have played for Rochester instead of having to go back to juniors. This year, Radim Merca will have to go back to the WHL, but in his age 19 season, he will be able to play in the AHL. So that is something that's very interesting. And again, this begins not next season, but the season after. So it would be perfect for Mertka. What do you think of this provision in the new CBA coming up? And I guess, you know what, actually, I'm going to wait for our next segment as well to really ask you your full thoughts on it. But for this specifically, what do you think about it? And if you say the word overdue, just know I agree with you.
I think the CHL at this point, I think they just need to do it to survive as a league. Like we saw guys like Jake O'Brien sign his entry level contract, preventing him from playing college hockey right after the draft, and we've seen a few other guys do that as well. I think Ben Kindle with Pittsburgh also signed his. So yeah, I think the league has to do it to survive at this point. Otherwise, it would just be a pre-college league, kind of like the USHL kind of is. Which sure is still a great league, but it's not like the quality of hockey we're used to seeing from the CHL, where we have guys like Matt Savoy, playing 2 years there, where we have a guy like Dylan Cousins going there after his draft year, just names like that. So yeah, I do think this is necessary for them to survive, because now guys can just spend one more year in the CHL, like someone like Jake O'Brien, for example, and then go to the AHL next year. Because if he had to play 2 more seasons there, that's probably a guy who would look at going to like a Michigan State or a Penn State, or looking at the college route. So I think this is huge to keep that alive. I also think it's good for the players too, because I think there's some guys who are too good for that level. I also think it may be bad for some players too, because these are still teenagers. A lot of them are underdeveloped. The AHL is an extremely physical league. Like that's more physical than the NHL at times. So if you're a 19-year-old teenager, if you're like 5'11", 165, and you take like a hit in the corners from a 6'5", like 220-pound vet defenseman, like that could derail your career if you get an injury at that level. So, hopefully teams are good with their judgment in deciding which guys are ready for this level, because I think it'll be great for some guys, but I think for some guys, it could kind of derail their career. Yeah, for some guys that could use another year in junior.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's especially not only physically against, grown men for sure, but 3 games in 3 days. And you're
Yeah, that
tired.
too.
You're tired, and maybe, I don't know, you're in the corner and you drop your head to look at the puck for a second and you get railroaded. Something like that, like you were saying, younger players. And that's a cat that just fell off my window. If you're watching the video version of that, go ahead and check in around 29-30 minutes in. You'll see a cat fall. um yeah, but wow, that, speaking of getting railroaded, I got off tracks with that one. But yeah, it is beneficial for certain players. Your undersized guys like a Savoy, maybe it actually wouldn't have been great for him. Maybe that second year in the WHL would have been, or
Yeah, I mean,
would
we
have been
saw
best in the situation.
we saw Savoy in that prospect challenge. He got absolutely destroyed. And I forget what exactly he injured. I think shoulder or something, but that
Yeah.
that took months off his development timeline.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. And so that's again the AHL is guys that are just not able. A lot of them are just not able to make the NHL. Whether it's just a little bit of slower hockey IQ and they're a little late to react to stuff, or they just don't have the foot speed. Um, Whatever it is, or there's a lot of grinders and enforcers and or whatever that aren't able to tap in there. So they're in the AHL trying to make a living, and they see a guy that's you know got his head down, ready for a licking, and it's gonna get it can get pretty ugly. It can definitely get a little ugly though. So something to watch for, something that's interesting when it comes to the NHL, AHL, and the CHL. Moving on to something that is somewhat related, actually, and probably the most fun topic because it's just, I would say, in Buffalo's backyard, if you want to agree with me. Gavin McKenna will be going to Penn State University this upcoming season. Wanted to, so obviously he played in WHL last season. Now he's going to the NCAA, and you already kind of touched on it, saying they need to do this to survive. But what is it like losing someone like a McKenna going to the NCAA? And do you think this is going to be a lot of guys doing the same thing? And again, I know you spoke about it, but is the CHL really, really in trouble, regardless of the things that they're changing to try to stay viable? Do you think the writing's on the wall, or do you think they'll still be a viable league?
Yeah, no, I think losing McKenna definitely hurts, but yeah, I still think the college stuff for the CHL, I still think it's huge for them because now you're getting guys that are playing the BCHL, the USHL, that had to play in those junior leagues to keep their college commitment. Now all those guys are going to the CHL, so you're having just really deep lineups in the CHL next season where it's filled out with American prospects and Canadian prospects, and it's going to become kind of like a true North American developmental league with also a few import spots mixed in too. I know they're expanding the import rule to add an extra player there, so I think the CHL could absolutely survive this. I think someone like McKenna, like we were talking about earlier, like guys who are too good for the CHL, like he was someone who's almost too good for the CHL this past season, which is pretty crazy to think about with how young he is.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be really exciting to watch him play college hockey because it's just always so fun to see like these guys in their draft year tear up college hockey. Like those really high end prospects. So we've seen Celebrini, uh, Jack Eichel, even you had a guy like Kyle Connor put up crazy point totals too, and Paul Kariya way back in the day with Maine.
Oh,
So I think McKenna, I think he's going to be in the record books next year at Penn State. I think he has some fun line mates to potentially play with next season, and yeah, pretty close to Buffalo too. I think they're even playing a series in RIT at
ah,
RIT as well. So there's going to be a lot of chances for people in Western New York to watch McKenna. Penn State's not a bad drive at all, and I've never actually been to a hockey game there yet. I've been outside the arena, and it looks absolutely
yeah.
incredible. It may shock some Sabres fans to see the name of the arena, Pagula Ice Arena. That may be a little PTSD for some Sabres fans, but it's a beautiful place, and it's
Yeah.
cool to see Penn State kind of build a legitimate program because they obviously had that great run last season, and they did it without these high end names. And now with NIL involved, they're going to get some more high end names, and I think they could become a true hockey powerhouse. And getting a guy like Gavin McKenna, who many consider to be a top prospect, I think that's just huge for the program, and it's going to be fun to watch next year too. It's going to be some fun college hockey.
Yeah, I think Walt and I might have to make a trip, whether it's to Rochester or to Penn State. Gonna have to try to, sucker you into going on a trip, and maybe we'll do a little. I don't know. Maybe we could do a little Sabremetric vlog.
Yeah,
Going through
absolutely.
the
Away
hills.
days.
Yeah, away days exactly. Away days on the 219. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's Penn State's a great facility. I'm very much like you. I was outside it, but wasn't actually inside. But I remember when it first really was open, they put out a video of like the, you know, what's available to the players inside. player lounges and hot tubs, cold tubs, and stick rooms and stuff. It was very impressive. And just knowing Penn State fans as well, they turn out for their football games, for their hockey games. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Hopefully they can nationally televise some of those games as well, because that'll be great to see McKenna in a Penn State uniform. So that is, I'm trying to think of anything else that we really wanted to cover. It was kind of a quick little episode, but glad we were able to sit down and chat a little bit. I know it wasn't live streamed or anything like that. We are going to be working on some video content coming up, maybe some kind of middle of the dead zone off-season live stream as well. But Walt's got some moving to do. So let's pay our respects to the background that we see now, because will not be that way
Got the
very
Carlos
much longer.
Puyol jersey right behind me. Some
That's
Barcelona action.
All right, a little Barcelona action. Like to see it. Man, I could go on. We're not turning this into the European soccer and or football, depending on who you are, podcast, but I could go on about them and their financial stuff that's been going on in Barcelona, and then Real Madrid getting knocked out of the Club World Cup in a pretty embarrassing fashion. Snack on that, Kylian Mbappe. But Walt's moving. Then a couple of weeks later, I'm moving. That's going to be a big undertaking as well. So episodes might be a little bit spotty. You're going to still try to do them maybe every week, maybe every other week. Going to try to do some video content as well. So if you are listening on audio platforms, definitely hop over to YouTube so you aren't missing anything that we are releasing. Again, we will still release, normal podcasts, but we'll also have some YouTube only stuff. We might also have, if you're someone that's watched a live stream on Twitter, we might also do some live streams that are only on YouTube as well. So make sure you subscribe for that as well. Walt, that's about it. That's all I got. It's probably the biggest spiel I went on today. So I think it's time for Walt's final word.
My final word will be Gavin McKenna will be a Buffalo Sabre next season.
Okay, first of all, no, this will not be the final word. Excuse me. We're not doing this again, guys. I can't do it. I still feel like we're paying back the hockey gods for the original tank. I can't do it. I know we were maybe thinking about talking about that during the McKenna thing, like, oh, it's a Pegula place, and what happens if they start slow? I'm not doing it. I can't do it. I can't. I wasn't someone that cheered for them to lose, but when they lost, I was like, okay, didn't want this to happen, but okay. I can't do it anymore. There's just so much losing part of the Sabres culture. I just can't.
I'm ready to bring it back. I'm ready to feel like it's 2014 again.
All right, well, that might be the first Sabremetrix fight that we we have live, but we'll save that. I think Walt's final word should be about that hat and how UB should be putting you on the payroll.
Yeah, no, I just tweeted that I got this new UB hat. I got it, I think, like a Rally House. It's like a sports store that just opened up near McKinley Mall. It's in like an old Pier 1 building. They got a ton of stuff in there. Saw this UB hat. And, I don't think I owned like a UB hat. I have a lot of other UB merch. So I'm like, might as well buy this hat. And yeah, a lot of people seem to like it. I'm trying to get the lighting right. It's got like the vintage Buffalo mascot on there. So yeah, maybe my final word, I could get in some UB stuff. I think UB football, extremely underrated family event. I think, much cheaper ticket than Bills games. They're going to be really good next season. So support your UB Bulls. Kind of try to check out one of their football games this upcoming season. It's a fun time, and they're winning the MAC this year. Mark that down.
Love it. Appreciate everyone listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.